Greetings, Vault Hunters. Just got back from the Borderlands movie at the theater. We saw it, and, well, if I could sum up my thoughts in a Simpsons clip, it would be this one.
Hey, kids, always recycle. To the extreme! Busted!
Ah, that stunk!
Well, what did everybody think?
Now, and it wasn't the worst movie ever. I mean, there were things about it I liked. I mean, as far as like capturing the look of Pandora, it was pretty good in that respect. There's lots of cool stuff, like little things in the margins that if you know the game, you would see and say, oh, that's really neat. Like Lilith uses an infinity as her like main weapon. And there was lots of things that were kind of, to the aesthetic, pretty cool. I'll tell you what I thought about it as a movie and as a Borderlands movie. The movie part, there's no spoilers, because we can just talk generically. The spoilers will be in the what I thought as a Borderlands movie part. So for the first part, just as a movie, the pacing is not really good. It speeds up in a lot of places where it should kind of slow down, and slows down in parts where it should speed up. The characters are kind of thrown together, and it's like in like an instant they're all like a family that's been together forever and would die for each other, and the chemistry is not there, because you can't show every little step of how a group of adventurers gets to that point. I understand that you'd need like a whole series to do justice to that idea, but they still don't really do the work of making you understand why these characters are bouncing off each other the way they are. So that was not good. The CGI was also not super great. There was some pretty cool action sequences. However, some of them are really left a lot to be desired, particularly like the big climax of the movie was really kind of a letdown in a lot of ways. But just as a movie, it didn't quite come together like you would hope it would, because a lot of the intangible stuff, like the way the characters relate to each other, just the chemistry they have, the vibe they have together, that's something that you can't really force. If it's not there, it's just kind of not there. And for the most part, it was kind of not there, even though the movie is filled with really talented people that I liked a lot. And there were some nice surprises. Like, I didn't think Jack Black was going to be great as Claptrap, but he actually was. That was actually one of my favorite parts of the movie, was what he brought to it. I figured Cate Blanchett would be good in the role, and she was. Kevin Hart, I maintain, is not a good Roland, but he was a good Kevin Hart. I mean, he's, basically himself in most movies. Not to say he can't act. You saw him in that one with Bryan Cranston where he showed all that range and that he can be a serious guy if he needs to. And but in this one, he was the likable kind of, the upbeat kind of protagonist that he plays, and that was fine. I mean, I'm not knocking it. Now on to the parts about it as a Borderlands movie, because I had huge problems with it, not as a movie as much as a Borderlands movie, because I mean, there's just so much. Like, Tiny Tina's in it, who is actually introduced in the second game, and they completely rewrote her origin story. The way Ariana Greenblatt plays her is not bad. I mean, it's not like, oh, that's terrible, but it's very different than from the games. The energy and the personality is just way, way, way toned down from what you'd be expecting if you've played the games. The main thing I didn't really like about it is the fact that, like, so much stuff is just missing. Like, there's just so much from the first game that is just not there, or is there but in a very, like, bastardized format, kind of. Like, for example, the bus ride into Firestone is in the movie, and Marcus is the bus driver. But they do this kind of, like, meta, self-aware thing where it's like, haha, this is like the scene, remember, from the game where they're telling you about vault hunting, and haha. But none of that stuff is really a part of the movie, so that's just kind of like winking at themselves that they made a movie that is not very close to the game. And like the vibe and the voice of Marcus were pretty close, but other than that, it was just kind of like it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Also, I don't see how you could have that scene and not have the Cage the Elephant song in there, which is such an iconic part of the intro and the original ad campaign. I don't really understand why you would leave that out. Maybe they wanted $1 gazillion for the rights to it, is all I can imagine. There's stuff like that. Like, there's Tina's backstory is completely rewritten. Lilith's is completely rewritten. They did a lot of stuff like that where they take the Firehawk thing, which is like kind of like a joke about how cults are made, kind of like a shot at like how religions probably got started. Very humorous, lighthearted thing, and they made that like a really serious thing in the first movie. And it seems like whoever made the movie doesn't really know the game that well. They're just like, hey, we need an IP to get our latest movie together and into the theaters, kind of like what's his name, Todd Phillips did with the Joker stuff, where I want to make a movie, I'm going to use this Joker stuff to get the money for it, kind of deal. So that's not really good. I mean, I don't understand why they didn't just go with like a more faithful rendition of it, other than the ineptitude of someone like Eli Roth, who in this one wrote the screenplay and directed. It doesn't make sense, because you sit there and you go down the line and it's like Dr. Zed, not in it. Brick, not in it. Mordecai, not in it. Silas and Janus Cobb, not in it. Mad Mel, not in it. Lucky Zephord, not in it. No General Knox, but we get, I guess it's supposed to be his daughter as one of the Atlas bad guys. Scooter and Ellie, in it for about 5 seconds with no dialogue. And no Scorpio turret? How can you not save a little special effects budget for that? It's one of the coolest things in the game, and in the movie that's what you would want to see. You could have had any of the original crew. You could have had Nine Toes in it. You could have had, any of those guys. Crom shows up in it for 5 seconds. The list goes on and on of stuff that's just missing from it. Some of the creatures and some of the vehicles and stuff look cool, but that was about it. There's just Angel is not in it at all. Of course, Jack is not in it. The boss of the Atlas Corporation plays like a huge part of it. I don't know where he comes into play, but if he shows up in the third game, where I kind of bailed, he's not in the first 3, which are like the key part of that series. I can be fact checked or whatever. Maybe he's in the later ones, but he shows up, plays like the most generic bad guy vibe in history. They do. Steel, not in it. Just the more you think about it, the further it goes. Just a whole lot of key stuff is just not there. The Guardian, not in it. The Iridians, referred to, a big part of like the backstory, but they're not in it when they open the vault. There's just a whole lot to be disappointed in. And I just feel that with source material as cool as Borderlands, you could have put a lot of these things together. Everybody that's a really fan of the game would have enjoyed it. I think the most successful adaptation of a video game is definitely Last of Us. And if you watch Last of Us, they do expand on a few things from the game that are not in the game. There are some like side episodes that just go deep into like kind of lore and like side characters, but the bulk of the series is like extremely faithful to the story. And not only did that win high marks with like fans of the game and people that know about that stuff, it also, regular people liked it too. It was a huge hit. So yeah, that's not what's going on with the Borderlands movie here. So, if I gotta give it stars or whatever out of 5, I'd say probably like a 2.5 or a 3. Like I said, it wasn't that bad. There was some fun. There was some good times in it. But yeah, very forced and yeah, somewhat of a disappointment. So anyway, thanks for listening to my thoughts on the Borderlands movie, and thanks for watching. I'll get back to Plants and Zombies now. If you could like, share, subscribe, all that stuff, blah blah blah. You know that story. If you could, it would mean a lot to me. Some of you, this may be the first video like this of mine that you're seeing. Picked up a lot of new subscribers. Thank you very much for playing Plants vs. Zombies. But if you check my playlists, I've organized a bunch of old games that I also played, and media commentary type stuff like this, and just kicking it on stream with other people while we play and such. So thanks again, and out.